Warzone versus Battlefield. Who would win in a 500 versus 500 2-hour war in a total map domination? And by the way, guys, this war is going to be taking place on Verdansk. Moving on, 500 Call of Duty Warzone operators are going to be facing off against 500 Battlefield soldiers in an all-out war that's going to last 2 hours. Each side brings its unique game mechanics, equipment, and team dynamics into the battle. Below, we're going to break down the comparison by key factors: spawn system, survival abilities, firepower, vehicles, kill streaks, movement, individual skills versus team skill, and more to determine which side would likely prevail. Spawn and respawn mechanics. Warzone operators insert via airdrop, parachuting from a plane or helicopter anywhere on the map, much like the Battle Royale drop. This is going to give them flexibility to land on high ground, beyond enemy lines, and near objectives. However, if they die, respawning isn't instantaneous. In a respawn-enabled Warzone mode like Resurgence, the timer starts around 15 seconds early on and lengthens to about 30 to 40 seconds later in the game. Teammates can help shorten that time by earning points, that is by getting kills or completing objectives or something like that, just getting points. They also can use reinforcement flares or go to a buy station and buy them back quicker. Warzone players start with one self-revive kit, and once that self-revive kit is used, once they're down, they would have to buy one from a buy station or maybe get one from a loot or supply box. If down, they can spend like 5 seconds to revive themselves at least once. Standard teammate revives also take about 4 to 5 seconds. Battlefield spawn system. Battlefield soldiers deploy straight into the action. They can spawn on squad members, on friendly vehicles, or on captured objectives, as long as those points are not under heavy enemy fire. Also, for the beginning of the game, the Battlefield players are going to be spawning on their HQ, so that's how the game is going to start. There's a short generic respawn timer that's about around 6 seconds, but effectively, Battlefield troops get back into the fight much faster than Warzone operators. Crucially, they can often spawn right near the front lines, on squad mates or a flag, whereas Warzone players might redeploy from a distant plane and have to parachute down. This means Battlefield units can reinforce or counterattack almost continuously, whereas Warzone teammates might be a bit staggered in re-entering the battlefield. Here's the impact on this battle. The battlefield size rapid, close respawns confer a significant advantage in sustaining an offensive or defense. A Warzone squad wiped out in an area might take 15 seconds to half a minute to return and parachute back in, giving Battlefield forces time to consolidate, to regroup, or push forward. In contrast, Battlefield squads wiped can often reappear en masse within seconds at a nearby spawn point and even catch Warzone players off guard. Warzone's initial aerial insertion could let them surprise the enemy or take advantage positions early. But the longer respawn delay as the battle wears on means the risk being overwhelmed by the endless wave of Battlefield reinforcements is going to be overwhelming for the Warzone troops. Warzone health and revives. Warzone operators have 100 base health and rely on automatic health regeneration. No med kits needed. After a few seconds out of combat, health begins to refill. They bolster their durability with armor plates. Each plate adds 50 health, and they can wear up to 3 plates for a total of 250 hit points. They can also carry spare plates to re-armor during fights. If down, meaning knocked to 0 health, a Warzone player enters the last stand state, where they can crawl or use self-revive kit taking about 5 seconds to get back up, or be revived by a teammate that's also going to take about 5 seconds. Each operator will be dropping with one self-revive kit, but after using it, they need to find another or buy another. Warzone Revive is risky. Enemies can finish off downed players by simply shooting them a few more times or executing them with a melee finisher. Notably, Warzone even allows interrogation on a downed enemy in Warzone 2.0, revealing their allies' location, a brutal intel advantage if they can pull it off. Battlefield soldiers also typically have 100 health with auto regeneration after a short delay. They don't have equipable armor plates, so their max health is going to stay at 100. Some Battlefield titles allow passive health boosts or body armor, gadgets, but nothing as strong as plus 50 armor. And we're not even going to be using that in this scenario. However, Battlefield's medic system is a game changer for them. Any teammate can attempt to revive on a downed soldier. In recent titles, all classes can do a slower revive, and the dedicated support medic class can do it fastest. Battlefield 6, which was released not too long ago, 2025, introduced a drag and revive mechanic, which is pretty cool because now you can drag soldiers while you're reviving them. The support class carries a defibrillator gadget which can revive a teammate instantly to full health when charged up. A skilled medic going between bodies can literally bring an entire squad back to life in seconds. In fact, early Battlefield 6 beta impressions noted reviving 3 downed comrades in a span of 2 seconds. Now, I think the effect on the COD players is going to be minimal just because COD players are really good at killing their opponents and they're really fast. So what's probably going to happen is that COD players are going to down the Battlefield players. Some are going to stay to wait to get revived, but if the COD players are overrunning them, the Battlefield players are going to see this in their down state and they're just going to give up and get respawned. One caveat: if a Battlefield soldier is killed outright by taking massive damage or a critical headshot, they skip the down state and cannot be revived. Notably, the Recon class has a sniper training perk where headshots from sniper rifles are instant lethal kills with no revive possible, effectively countering revival on those hits. So that's definitely going to affect some players on the COD side. If they get hit by the snipers with a headshot, they're not going to go to the last stand state, they're just going to die. Moving on, down state differences. In Warzone, a down player is very vulnerable. They can be thirsted, meaning finished off by gunfire or explosives. In Battlefield's down state, a down enemy cannot be killed by further gunfire, which is kind of crazy because they're just sitting and waiting to get revived, and that could somewhat affect the COD players. Like I said, I don't think it's going to affect them that much. I think the effect is going to be very acute or even minimal. Also, the enemy has to either melee them or let them bleed out, but I think it's just going to be too much chaos during that. So I think that those COD kills are going to end up getting kills. Some are going to get revived, and that's going to be really good, but the instant revive from the defibrillator isn't going to be that much of a game changer. Sorry. This means a Warzone player who downs a Battlefield soldier might be surprised that pumping extra bullets into him immediately isn't going to eliminate him, unless they risk moving in for a finisher blow, which might expose them. A medic can swoop in and revive the downed soldier to keep fighting. Warzone operators aren't used to enemies effectively having an invulnerable bleed out state. In Warzone, you always finish your knocks to prevent self-revive. This difference makes Battlefield revives even more potent in sustaining their side. But like I said, I don't think it's going to be that much of a game changer. I think the COD players will adapt to that. Just realize that all they have to do is just kind of be in the area and make sure that nobody comes around and try to revive them, which is not that hard because I played Battlefield 6 for a little bit. If the battlefield is getting too crazy, no one's going to come to revive you. If there's too much going on, you got a bunch of COD players chasing you and wiping out your squad, they're not going to have enough time to be able to revive. They're probably going to be too busy trying to make sure they stay alive. Moving on to impact on the battle. The Warzone team has an edge in personal durability, higher total health when fully armored. In a straight 1v1 gunfight, a Warzone operator with 250 health can outlast a Battlefield trooper with only 100 health. Battlefield's team durability is still pretty good thanks to their near instant repeatable revives. A Warzone player might down 1 or 2 enemies only to see them back on their feet moments later because a medic dragged them behind cover and shocked them with defibs. As one analysis put it, Battlefield's fast revives means the weight of numbers can easily overcome any engagement through sheer grind. As support zapping down soldiers create an army of juiced up zombie soldiers, I guess. They refuse to stay dead. Warzone self-revives gives individuals a second chance, but it's slower and one-time use. Battlefield medics can revive dozens of times. But overall, in a prolonged battle, the Battlefield side can erase some of Warzone's kills through revives, unless Warzone fighters finish every downed enemy off, which could be a lot harder to do in this chaotic scenario that the COD players would not be used to. This resilience favors the Battlefield players in attrition warfare just slightly. Perks and special abilities versus class roles. Warzone perks. Warzone operators can equip perk packages that grant various passive bonuses. For example, we have Low Profile, Ghost, Cold-Blooded, Double Time, Sprinter, Gung Ho, Quick Fix, Bomb Squad, Tempered, Bird's Eye, Alertness, and also Overkill. Warzone also has field upgrades like Dead Silence, temporarily silencing footsteps, plus Speed Boost, which a sneaky operator could use to flank and ambush Battlefield troops. And you know how awesome Dead Silence is if you played the original Warzone. Dead Silence was literally probably one of my favorite field upgrades to use. Battlefield classes and traits. The Battlefield side doesn't have perks in the same pick 3 style. Instead, each class has unique gear/abilities. You have the Recon class that has a UAV scout, can prevent revives with a sniper headshot. Also can give constant pings on Warzone operatives. Engineer class, you have a repair tool, rocket launchers, and they have vehicle spawn beacon or supply crate. Also helps tanks and aircraft stay operational by, using your tool and fixing them. Then you have the support class, medic class, and it's probably one of the best classes to use. Can supply medical crates and supply bags to teammates. Has the ammo box, smoke grenade launcher, grenade intercept system. It's basically the backbone of the Battlefield squad. Then you have the assault class. It has grenades, has adrenaline rush, light anti-armor launcher or grenade launcher, and has a, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, thermobaric rocket. Also can give teammates, squad mates an adrenaline boost. And also, essentially, assaults are tough and enhance their squad's offensive push. Information warfare. Warzone Ghost perk is a huge factor. Warzone operators with Ghost will not appear on UAV scans. If the Battlefield Recon pings an area with their UAV ability, any Ghost equipped enemies might not show up, potentially leading to deadly surprises. Warzone players are very accustomed to using Ghosts to dodge enemy UAVs in their game. Likewise, Cold-Blooded would prevent devices like thermal scopes or AI controlled turrets, if Battlefield had any, from auto spotting them. Battlefield classes don't have an equivalent invisibility to sensors. Generally, if they're scanned or spotted, you'll appear. Battlefield's counter to Ghost could be the motion sensor gadget. If Warzone Ghost users make noise or move near a place sensor, they'd still ping. But Warzone also has a counter, Dead Silence field upgrade. Makes them silent for a short duration, nullifying even audio-based detection. And what is the impact on the battle? Warzone perks system means certain individuals can be specialized to counter Battlefield tactics, i.e. some Warzone soldiers will definitely run Bomb Squad to survive explosions from tank shells or grenades, and Ghosts to evade recon scans. This will make it harder for Battlefield to keep consistent intel on all 500 enemies. Warzone Overkill ensures many of their fighters can carry rocket launchers or sniper rifles as a second weapon, giving them more anti-vehicle punch, whereas Battlefield engineers are a subset of the team. However, Battlefield's class synergy is built for combined arms warfare. At any given time, a Battlefield squad has dedicated anti-vehicle dedication medic, etc., meaning no aspect of warfare is ignored. Warzone squads might all be running meta assault rifles and lack a medic or engineer equivalent. If so, they might score a lot of kills but struggle to handle vehicles or sustain losses. The Battlefield team's ability to repair tanks under fire, deploy intercept gadgets to neutralize Warzone grenades and rockets, and denying revives with sniper headshots gives them a coordinated toolkit. In summary, Warzone perks offer tactical tricks and enhancements, on a soldier-by-soldier basis, stealth, quick, healing, extra weapons, but the battlefield classes provide a strategic role-based advantage. Every need, healing, resupply, and anti-armor recon is systematically covered. Over 2 hours, the coordination from class roles likely outweighs the individual boost from perks. Vehicles versus Killstreaks, the heavy firepower showdown. One of the starkest differences between the two sides is how they deploy heavy firepower. Battlefield vehicles. The battlefield side brings a full arsenal of player-controlled vehicles. Main battle tanks are heavily armored two-seater tanks with massive cannons. Tanks serve as a front-line sledgehammers, able to break enemy defensive lines with high explosive shells and absorb a ton of punishment. A tank's high explosive shell can annihilate groups of infantry in one blast, and AP rounds threaten any vehicles Warzone might use. Tanks also can pop smoke screens and use active protection systems to intercept incoming rockets for a short time, making them hard to kill quickly. However, they are slowly moving and can be flanked by infantry if not supported. Infantry fighting vehicles. These are 6-seat lighter tanks that carry autocannons, some anti-tank missiles, and transport infantry. They're more mobile and great for suppressing infantry with rapid fire cannons. IFVs can coordinate with troops to push objectives fast. Attack helicopters. Gunships such as the AH-64 Apache, equipped with rocket pods, anti-tank guided missiles, and turreted cannons. These provide devastating close air support, able to strike targets behind cover or on rooftops with ease. A skilled helicopter crew can decimate clusters of infantry or take out vehicles from a distance. They must keep moving, but they add a deadly third dimension to the battlefield. Jets. Battlefield jets are extremely fast, and in capable hands, they can deliver precision strikes. Attack jets can carry bombs or rockets to carpet bomb infantry and vehicles in strafing runs. Fighter jets would probably engage enemy air threats, but since Warzone has no aircraft equivalent, they'd likely use the occasional ground attack or to maintain air superiority by hunting Warzone drones and parachuting soldiers. Jets are hard to hit due to the speed and can cross the map in seconds, but require skill to be effective. Transport vehicles. Battlefield also has transport helicopters and lighter ground transports, useful for mobility but not heavily armed. Given 500 players, expect the Battlefield side to consistently ferry troops to the front, maintaining high tempo. Mobile anti-air vehicles. Battlefield often includes dedicated anti-air tanks. If present, these would be critical for shooting down Warzone UAVs, counter UAVs, drones, and especially to threaten any Warzone-controlled aerial killstreak. Primarily, the AA vehicles will ensure Battlefield owns the skies, denying easy parachute drops and destroying any loitering Warzone drones or streaks. Vehicle availability. In Battlefield games, vehicles usually have limited spawns. However, over 2 hours with 500 players, assume Battlefield can field multiply armor columns and their air sorters continually, especially if respawn waves keep bringing new vehicles. Engineers on the team will keep them running with repairs. Warzone vehicles and killstreaks. Warzone operators don't have drivable tanks or jets, but they have a mix of light vehicles and powerful kill streaks they call in. Ground vehicles. Warzone ground transport includes ATVs and SUVs, the LTV light armored truck, and the heavier MRAP style armored truck, which has lots of armor but no built-in weapons unless players mount the bat. These vehicles are useful for moving around and providing quick cover, but they are outgunned by Battlefield tanks. Warzone vehicles also consume fuel and can run out of gas, requiring refueling at gas stations, a logistical concern Battlefield vehicles typically do not have. Helicopters. Warzone has light, unarmed utility helicopters. These are basically transport helos that can carry squads for fast insertion. In Warzone 2, a heavy chopper was introduced, a big helicopter that could hover stably and was tough to shoot down. However, Warzone helicopters lack built-in weapons, so their role is mainly mobility or using passengers as gunners. They could be used for quick hit-and-run drops or to redeploy teams behind enemy lines, but they be very vulnerable to battlefield attack helicopters, jets, and AA vehicles. Boats. If there's water, Warzone has RHIB speedboats and an armored patrol boat with turrets. The armored boat actually can hit hard, but on most maps, water is limited. Battlefield also has attack boats typically, so any naval aspect would similarly favor Battlefield with more options. Killstreaks, precision airstrike. Warzone operators can call in a pair of jets to strafe a target location with bombs. A precision airstrike can take out a group of soldiers or damage a vehicle caught in the open, especially if combined with UAV to target clusters. It's a one-time ability, but multiple players could call multiple strikes if they have them. An airstrike hits fast and is hard to shoot down once triggered. However, its damage is not as massive as, say, a Battlefield jet dedicated bombing run. A precision strike drops a couple bombs and will kill infantry not undercover, but a full health tank might survive a near miss. Still, it's a great tool to soften up defensive line and force enemies out of cover. Killstreak, cluster strikes. This call is a volley of cluster mortar shells on a designated area. It covers a slightly wider area than a precision, but each individual blast is weaker. Cluster strikes are excellent for area denial. If battlefield troops are entrenched in a street or on a hill, a cluster strike will make them disperse or take cover, interrupting their firing. Like the precision, it can damage vehicles, but may need multiple direct hits to destroy a tank. These kill streaks can also be used reactively. If Warzone notice a battlefield tank column or mass of infantry, a quick call can rain explosives on top of them. Killstreak, UAV Recon. Warzone players can launch a UAV drone that for 30 seconds reveals enemy positions as dots on a minimap within a certain radius. If 3 Warzone players coordinate and call UAVs together, it creates an advanced UAV, which shows real-time positions and directions of movement of all enemies for a full minute. UAVs are a huge force multiplier for Warzone side. Battlefield has nothing exactly equivalent. Their Recon UAV ability is local and visual, not a full map sweep. If Warzone pops UAVs regularly, Battlefield soldiers would be constantly at risk of being spotted and pre-aimed by enemies. Battlefield's counter could be a counter UAV, and indeed, Warzone has a counter UAV streak which scrambles the enemy minimap in an area for 30 seconds. If Warzone deploys one, it might blank Battlefield's awareness or even mess with any minimap spotting they rely on. Killstreak, Sentry Gun, RCXD. Warzone can deploy a sentry gun at a location to cover a flank or hold a position. They can also deploy RCXD, which is a remote-controlled explosive car, essentially a rolling bomb that an operator can drive under a tank or into a cluster of infantry and detonate. These are more situational, but could net surprise kills on clustered battlefield troops or damage a vehicle's underside. Killstreak, Juggernaut Armor. A rare but game-changing power-up a Warzone player can call in a care package containing a Juggernaut suit, which, when worn, gives the soldier massive armor and a minigun. Juggernauts in Warzone are extremely tough. In Modern Warfare 2019, they have about 1,250 health points, effectively 5 times what a normal plated player has. They don't take fall damage and can even perform a crushing ground slam. That's kinda crazy. The downside, Juggernauts are slow and big, making them obvious targets. In this war, if a few Warzone operators become Juggernauts, they turn into walking tanks, soaking up rockets and bullets that would kill normal troops. They can lay down heavy suppressive fire with a minigun, potentially pinning down battlefield infantry and even threatening light vehicles. Now let's talk about the miscellaneous. Warzone also has fun toys like the combat bow, cluster mines, a thrown device that deploys a field of mini mines, great for area denial or ambushes, especially if a battlefield squad rushes in unaware. Bomb drones, a small quadcopter with an attached C4 that the operator flies into a target, effectively a mini smart bomb that can wipe a squad if they don't shoot it down in time. These can tilt a local engagement if used cleverly. Economy and availability. Warzone's kill streaks aren't free. Normally, players must find them in loot boxes or purchase them at buy stations using in-game cash. Fire sale, which temporarily makes purchases cheaper or free. With 500 players, Warzone side would likely organize to loot as much cash as possible from the environment. Warzone has contracts like scavenger hunts or high-value targets that give cash. As the battle goes on, they could have periods of calling multiple UAVs and strikes. But if Battlefield disrupt their cash flow or control of buy stations, this could limit Warzone's ability to spam streaks continuously. And what is the impact on this battle? This is a classic matchup of quality versus quantity and technology versus tactics. Battlefield's advantage: sheer firepower and durability. The Battlefield side tanks and aircraft present a huge advantage in open field and vehicle-to-vehicle engagements. A single main battle tank, properly used, can hold off dozens of infantry until they coordinate a response. The psychological impact of an enemy tank, rounds exploding and leveling buildings, cannot be overstated. Warzone players are not used to facing tanks head-on. The closest in Warzone would be an armored truck, which is far less lethal. Battlefield pilots in attack helos might rack up kill after kill if Warzone lacks immediate anti-air answers. Essentially, Battlefield brings heavier hardware that outranges and outguns anything on the Warzone side. For example, if Battlefield establishes a tank line on a vital hill, Warzone will have to expand significant resources, multiple rockets, airstrikes, or suicidal C4 charges to break through. Meanwhile, the tanks can keep respawning with new crews, whereas Warzone's limited kill streaks might not replenish as quickly. Warzone's counterplay: asymmetric warfare. The Warzone team isn't defenseless. Their strategy would likely resemble guerrilla tactics. Killstreak strikes: use UAV intel to locate clumped enemies or identify where the tank is camping, then unleash precision or cluster strikes to disrupt battlefield formations. For instance, if battlefield infantry are pushing in a group behind a tank, a well-placed cluster strike could down several of them, slowing the push, and even force the tank to back off to avoid damage. While medics can revive the down, that still buys time and expands their attention. Rocket spam and C4 ambushes. Thanks to overkill, many Warzone soldiers can carry anti-vehicle launchers. Expect Warzone squads to assign someone as a makeshift engineer with a launcher. A volley of 5 to 6 rockets at once can overwhelm a tank's active protection system and strike it. Battlefield vehicles can be destroyed by a concerted effort. 2 or 3 hits will disable most tanks, and one well-placed C4 satchel can one-shot if detonated on a tank's rear armor. Warzone operators are crafty with their explosives, using drill charges that burrow through cover and explode. A direct hit from a drill charge could damage a tank's crew or force infantry out of hiding. They might let a tank roll into a city block and then swarm it from alleys with C4 and Molotov cocktails. Battlefield crews will need their engineers and support on high alert to keep their beasts alive under such focused fire. Juggernauts and riot shields. If Warzone deploys Juggernaut suits, those players become a mini-boss on the field. A Juggernaut can absorb an insane amount of small arms fire. Battlefield soldiers would need to hit it with rockets or a tank shell several times to bring it down. Under Juggernaut cover, regular Warzone troops might advance behind, using the Juggernaut as a bullet sponge. Warzone also has riot shields, which some players can equip on their backs and wield frontally. Shields block bullets entirely from the front, forcing Battlefield players to use explosives or flank them. In CQB, a shield user can bait shots while teammates peek out and return fire. These tools could help Warzone squads hold buildings or tight corridors against Battlefield attacks longer than expected. Hit and run vehicles. Warzone's lighter vehicles, while no match for tanks, are faster. Clever teams could use ATVs or helicopters to outmaneuver the slower armor, flanking around to hit rear lines or quickly repositioning. For example, a Warzone fire team might load in a chopper, fly low to the ground, hugging terrain to avoid AA detection, and drop behind the Battlefield tank line. Once there, they could wreak havoc with rocket launchers to the rear or even Commander Battlefield's own stationary weapons. Battlefield side would need to guard against such flanking insertions, typically done with their fighter jets or by keeping an eye on radar, though Ghost perk makes that tricky. Overall, Battlefield's combined arms gives them a macro-level superiority. They control sky and land with powerful assets. Warzone has the edge in micro-level tactics, sneaky deployments, on-demand strikes, and versatility of infantry loadouts. If the Warzone team can coordinate a lot of killstreak usage in a short window, they could punch a hole in the battlefield lines. But sustaining that is difficult without vehicles of their own. On the flip side, if battlefield commanders organize an armor blitz with tank columns supported by helicopters, Warzone will be hard-pressed to stop it head-on. They'd likely resort to dispersing and using every explosive in their kit to pick off vehicles one by one. Mobility and movement differences. Warzone's movement. Call of Duty players are known for fast, agile movement. Warzone operators can sprint and tactical sprint, slide into cover, slide cancel, dive through windows, mount and peek around edges quickly, and bunny hop around corners. They even move faster with lighter weapons. This means in close quarters, a Warzone fighter might dance around a Battlefield player, making themselves very hard to hit. Warzone also allows a meat shield mechanic, using a grabbed enemy as cover. Their traversal of the map relies on parachutes for initial drop, and any high jump, zip lines on structures, and grappling hooks in some field upgrades. Essentially, quick repositioning and outmaneuvering is a Warzone staple. They also have prone diving and other maneuvers to throw off an opponent's aim. Battlefield movement. Battlefield has become more mobile over the years, but generally not as fast-paced as Warzone. Soldiers have a standard sprint, can vault over obstacles and breach through doors and windows similarly, and can swim. However, the gunplay in Battlefield often penalizes firing while moving too much. Players tend to take more controlled positions and use prone or crouch for accuracy. There's no slide cancel exploit in Battlefield. If you slide or dive, you'll have some recovery before shooting effectively. Battlefield players also rely on vehicles for macro mobility to cover large distances quickly. They can spawn in transports or use squad spawn beacons. On foot, they can't reposition across the map as rapidly as Warzone operators who might redeploy via parachute from a tall building or from a plane or helicopter. Though in the new Battlefield 6, they do have the parachute mechanic in-game, so they can parachute from multiple different places. They're just not as fast and not as maneuverable as Warzone. Fatigue and downtime. Warzone players are used to periods of intense action followed by downtime. They sprint and slide in short bursts. Battlefield players, especially in modes like Conquest and Breakthrough, experience more constant action at objective zones, but also long runs to objectives and continuous firefights once there. Warzone's culture of movement is very high actions per minute in close fights, whereas Battlefield is a mix of bursts of intensity and tactical pauses. Warzone players' twitch reflexes and movement can give them an edge in every 1v1 or even a 1v2 skirmish. But Battlefield does have stamina in sustained battles and managing multiple threat angles, though this will not have that much of an impact on the Warzone players. Impact on the battle. In an infantry-only battle, Warzone's superior movement mechanics mean a few operators could run circles around less mobile Battlefield soldiers. For instance, a Warzone player might bunny hop out of a doorway or drop shot to throw off a Battlefield opponent's aim, securing the kill. COD's aim assist is quite strong at close range, meaning Warzone players on controller can track targets through fast motions. Battlefield aim assist is typically more modest, so in tight urban fights or building-to-building combat, Warzone squads might win more shootouts via sheer movement skill and faster aim-down sight speeds on their guns. On a larger scale, Battlefield's movement advantages lie in development of macro movement. They can spawn in behind Warzone lines using squad spawns. They also don't need to constantly run back from a far spawn. A Battlefield player who dies can spawn 50 meters from where they died if a squad mate survived, whereas a Warzone player might be dropping from 500 meters up and floating down. This means Battlefield can maintain front lines better, while Warzone might feel on the back foot, having to rush back to the fight after each death. They definitely could parachute back into the fight, but it wouldn't be a very good idea for the Warzone players, just because most Warzone players, after they die, they usually spawn back in with a pistol. Now, sometimes in certain modes or whatever, they do spawn in with maybe an SMG or an assault rifle, but for the most part, pistols are the main thing that Warzone players respawn with. So they would have to parachute down somewhere else, loot some boxes, get some weapons first, and then go back into the main fight, while the Battlefield players always have all their weapons as soon as they respawn. Also consider environment interaction. Battlefield's destruction means cover is fleeting. Warzone players might be great at sliding into a room for cover, but in Battlefield, that room's wall can be blown open by a tank or rocket, suddenly exposing them. They might try to snake around a building only to realize half of it is rubble now. Battlefield players will use this to their advantage. They will create new sight lines by blasting holes in walls, something Warzone fighters won't anticipate from experience. Warzone does have an edge when it comes to mobility, but some of that can be nullified if there's no cover to move between. Then the Warzone player will just have to rely on bunny hops, drop shotting, and slide canceling to get the shot, which they still do have an advantage. In some cases, a Warzone squad sprinting across the street might suddenly eat a tank shell or have an entire building they were heading for collapse from C4, leaving them in the open, though the effects of this on the Warzone players are minimal. In summary, Warzone's movement gives macro level combat superiority, especially in 1v1 engagements, even 1v2s, but Battlefield's ability to strategically reposition through spawns and alter the terrain allows them to stay in the fight a lot longer when dealing with Warzone movement. The less cover and more open the battlefield becomes, the more any raw movement speed advantage dwindles. Weapons and equipment. Both sides have a full modern arsenal, but there are differences in how they acquire and use them. Warzone weapons. Warzone operators start out with a mere pistol when they drop. They must loot weapons from supply boxes or ground loot quickly. Eventually, they can call in a loadout drop bought at a station or perhaps given as an event, which grants the entire squad their pre-configured custom weapons and perks. These custom guns are highly optimized, attachments that reduce recoil, large magazines, and more. Warzone's gun selection includes assault rifles, SMGs, LMGs, snipers and marksman rifles, shotguns, and tactical rifles, typically based on real-world modern firearms. Warzone guns generally have very low recoil and are hit scan or fast projectile out of medium range, making them easy to control in full auto. Time to kill, or TTK, in Warzone can be extremely fast, a few hundred milliseconds if shots land, especially with high damage guns at close range. Additionally, Warzone players can carry one lethal and one tactical equipment, two of each if they have the right perk. Their toolkit might include frag grenades, Simtacs, sticky bombs, C4 throwing knives, which instantly finish a downed enemy, Molotovs, thermite charges, or the new drill charge that can flush out enemies behind cover. For tactical gear, they have flashbangs, stun grenades, concussions, smoke grenades, tear gas, heartbeat sensors, snapshot grenades, decoy grenades, stim shots, and a few more. Such a variety means Warzone fighters often initiate fights with a flashbang or a stun. A stunned Battlefield soldier is easy prey for the Call of Duty players. 2 flashes in a row could disable a whole squad's vision while Warzone rushes for the kill. Battlefield weapons. Battlefield troops spawn with their chosen kit and weapon from the get-go. There is no looting. They have their primary, which could include assault rifles from assault class, LMGs for support, sniper rifles for recon, SMGs/carbines for engineer. Battlefield 6 changed some of these restrictions, but generally, each has a favorite weapon, and they also carry a secondary pistol. They also have limited ammo, which can be resupplied by the support class. Battlefield gunplay has more realistic recoil and spread. Automatic fire is often less accurate at range, so burst firing is common. There's also a bullet drop and travel time for long-range shots, meaning snipers have to lead targets at distance. Whereas in Warzone, sniper rifles, particularly with high-velocity rounds, are very fast and relatively flat shooting. Shotguns on the Battlefield sides are mentioned to have a lot of damage, likely brutally effective in close range. Though I think the Battlefield shotguns might be a bit stronger than the COD shotguns, as the COD shotguns in-game are usually trash. Battlefield soldiers each carry a couple of gadgets. These are class tools as discussed, and one grenade, frag, or specialized per class, plus maybe one throwable tactical, like a smoke for support, stun/flash for an assault, and you know the rest. The quantity is more limited. A Battlefield assault might have one flashbang, and 1 frag by default, unless resupplied. This means Warzone's ability to spam grenades could overwhelm a Battlefield squad that already threw its 1 smoke and has nothing left until the ammo crate arrives. Customization and mid-battle adjustments. Warzone players upon death can edit their loadout for their next redeploy. This means if they notice the Battlefield team doing something a bit different, let's say using a lot of vehicles and snipers, they can switch to different classes or loadout to adapt. Battlefield players are also able to change loadouts on respawn, but class restrictions apply. An engineer can't spawn with a sniper rifle unless they switch to Recon class. Warzone's flexibility with overkill and no class binding means potentially every Warzone player can be what they need to be at any moment once they have their loadout.
Okay, now I need to let people know that this right here is a absolute crime. She looks chopped in the game, but in real life she's not chopped at all. I absolutely don't like that. I'm sorry I'm putting my little 2 cents in, but it just doesn't make sense to purposely make her ugly in the game, and she's not ugly in real life. Anyways, back to the video.
Whereas the Battlefield always needs a mix. You can't have everyone suddenly be anti-air if only engineers have AA launchers, unless they all redeploy as engineer class, but then you lose medics, and that could be a problem. Impact on the battle. In raw firepower per soldier, Warzone's custom guns might actually outshine Battlefield's, at least in handling. A tuned Warzone assault rifle has minimum recoil and high ADS speed. A Battlefield assault rifle might kick more, and the player might not be running a meta build. Battlefield doesn't usually have meta attachments in the same sense that balance guns differently. Also, aim assist on consoles. Warzone aim assist is known to be very generous, allowing controller users to track targets efficiently. Battlefield's aim assist exists, but is generally less sticky. If many players are on controller, Warzone team could have a slight aiming edge in close and medium range fights due to this. That said, Battlefield weapons can be very deadly too, especially at range and with combined arms. A Battlefield support with a bipod LMG can lay down suppressive fire with less recoil when mounted. Moreover, the Battlefield's ammo constraint could actually be a problem if not managed. Warzone players via munition boxes or just by looting fallen ammo might have plenty of bullets to keep shooting. Battlefield players rely on support dropping ammo. If a squad is without one, they could run dry in a prolonged fight, forcing them to scavenge off dead bodies. Warzone's habit of looting means they'll happily grab Battlefield weapons off the ground as backups. Though I'm not sure if I think I would allow this in this scenario. You guys let me know down in the comment section. Another factor, melee combat. Warzone has a plethora of melee options, knives, swords, even Cali sticks, which is some of my favorite, which can be insta-kill if you get close enough. Battlefield has brutal knife takedowns from behind and maybe a survival knife, but fewer exotic melee weapons. In tight quarters, a stealthy Warzone player might actually get behind a group and perform execution animations, though those take time and leave you very vulnerable. It's a minor thing, but shows Warzone's anything goes combat style versus Battlefield's more standard issue approach. Overall, Warzone's weapon advantage is in close medium range, lethality, and rate of utility. More grenades, more stuns. Battlefield's weapon advantage is range and combined arms integration, weapons plus vehicles. If fights occur at longer range, say 200 plus meters, Battlefield snipers and vehicle-mounted guns will outperform Warzone's assault rifles and SMGs that have damage drop-off. If fights occur at close range, building interiors or alleyways, Warzone quick handling and flashbang usage will likely allow them to clear rooms much faster. So, the terrain of engagement matters. Urban combat favors Warzone style. Open field combat might favor the Battlefield styles a lot more. Information and reconnaissance. Information wins wars. Each side has tools to gather intel. Warzone intel. The primary recon tools are the UAV killstreak and personal devices, the heartbeat sensors and recon drones. A UAV sweep can reveal a huge portion of the enemy team on radar, except those with ghost, for 30 seconds. This is often enough to coordinate an airstrike or a quick flank. Warzone's advanced UAV from 3 simultaneous UAVs or a rare item would essentially show every battlefield soldier's location in real time for a minute, which could be very devastating if used at the right moment. The heartbeat sensor is a small handheld monitor that pings any nearby enemies who aren't running cold-blooded, about 50 meters. Warzone players often use this to clear buildings, often called heartbeat the building. Against battlefield soldiers who have no equivalent counter perk, cold-blooded is a called thing. This means a Warzone operative could detect hiding battlefield soldiers around a corner and pre-fire them. The Recon drone, a controllable flying drone with a camera, can mark enemies from above. Warzone could deploy a few of these and act as a mini spotter plane, though they can be shot down fairly easily if they're spotted. There's also the field mic and spy camera gadget in Warzone, a device you can place that acts like a CCTV, alerting you to enemy sounds or movement in the area. Warzone can litter these in defensive spots. Battlefield Intel. Battlefield relies on a combination of spotting and sensors. Recon class UAV ability, mentioned as a 100-meter radius scan for 60 seconds, is great for local area awareness. Before entering a village, a Recon can deploy the scan and highlight Warzone fighters hiding in buildings within that radius. It's essentially a longer-lasting but smaller UAV. Recons also have motion sensor balls, throwable devices that beep when enemy moves nearby, and can use gadgets like Recon Drone, which in Battlefield marks targets too, similar to Warzone's, likely with infinite flight time until shot or battery ends. Spotting scope or binoculars. Some Battlefield players may carry a spotting tool that can tag enemies at long range. The classic 3D spotting puts a Dorito triangle over enemies for your team. This is a manual but can reveal snipers or campers that UAV might miss. Ghost users, if you will. Squad spotting and communication. In Battlefield, when one player spots an enemy, by pressing a button while aiming at them, the enemy is marked on all teammates' HUD for a short time. So even without UAV, the Battlefield team members will be calling out targets via the spotting system. Warzone doesn't have the 3D spotting, they only have pinging on the map, which is minimal and only tracks for a very brief time. The Warzone operator could be lit up on 20 people's screens with a big indicator, making it hard for them to stay concealed. Environmental awareness. Battlefield maps often have a constant minimap UAV for firing unsuppressed weapons. If Warzone folks fire their loud guns in some Battlefield titles, they appeared as dots on the minimap for a second. Warzone also has this mechanic in standard multiplayer, but in Warzone Battle Royale, they use a compass ping system instead, unless a UAV is up. If we assume unsuppressed fire can be heard and detected, Battlefield players will know approximately directions to watch. Warzone players are used to suppressors, so likely many Warzone guns will be silenced. Battlefield players might not be accustomed to enemies not showing up on the minimap after shooting. Counter intel. Even without high-tech countermeasures, the simplest counter to UAV is for someone to shoot the UAV drone down. In Warzone's case, UAVs are abstract and off-map, so you can't shoot them, but a counter UAV is a physical drone that Battlefield could destroy. Battlefield's AA vehicles and even infantry can easily target the counter UAV drone Warzone might send, clearing the jamming. And what's the impact on this battle? Warzone likely has the upper hand in global intel, the ability to call UAV sweeps of wide areas. This means Warzone leaders can direct strikes or maneuvers with knowledge of enemy concentrations. Battlefield intel is more localized but continuous, since Recon spam the 100-meter UAV every so often, and every soldier can spot targets they see. On defense, Battlefield's motion sensors and spotting will make it hard for any lone Warzone commando to sneak around. They'll get lit up if they move too close to a Recon sensor or if anyone sees them. However, Warzone Ghost perk throws a wrench in Battlefield's reliance on sensors. Ghost will keep Warzone operators off Battlefield's minimap UAV and perhaps even the Recon scan. If half the Warzone team runs Ghost, Battlefield might frequently find their scans coming up empty until the contact is made. Warzone players are used to using Ghost, especially to counter UAV heavy strategies. Battlefield players might not anticipate how many enemies are actually ghosted and could be nearby. Additionally, Warzone's propensity to interrogate downed enemies could be devastating in small pockets. If a Battlefield soldier gets downed and a Warzone operator does a quick interrogation, it will live ping the locations of all the soldiers' nearby squad mates. In the chaos of 500 versus 500, this might be harder to pull off, but if done right, it temporarily spotlights the Battlefield squad to the Warzone side, allowing a swift cleanup. Electronic warfare. Warzone also has gadgets like EMP drone or the DDoS field upgrade, disabling electronics in a radius. If those are in play, Warzone could disable nearby vehicle HUDs or active defenses for a moment, making tanks more vulnerable. Battlefield support class has vehicle EMP gadgets in some games too, so both might toss out EMP effects in localized areas. In conclusion, information is fairly balanced, but in a different sphere. Warzone has the broad overview via UAVs and can hide individuals with Ghost. Battlefield has constant on-the-ground spotting and local detection. Likely, the Warzone team can achieve short-term intel superiority by popping UAVs at critical moments, giving them an edge in setting up ambushes or timing an attack. Whereas the Battlefield team will have persistent general awareness. They always know roughly where the front line is and where enemies are pressuring, thanks to spotting and the objective status. As time goes on, Battlefield's better big-picture coordination could help them predict where Warzone forces will go, even without constant UAV.
I still remembered the sound of the engines. Hundreds of us had stood inside the cargo hold of a C-17 Globemaster as it carried us toward the largest battlefield we had ever seen. The red deployment lights illuminated our weapons, harnesses, parachutes, and nervous faces. Below us was a massive combat zone formed from sections of Verdansk, Urzikstan, Rebirth Island, Al-Mazrah, and Battlefield 6 Fort Linden. For many of us, parts of the map were familiar. We recognized the buildings, roads, rooftops, bunkers, waterways, and industrial zones. We believed that knowledge would give us an advantage, but this battlefield was different. Almost everything could be destroyed. Buildings could collapse. Walls could be blown apart. Cover could disappear without warning. Roads could become blocked by rubble, and familiar defensive positions could be opened by tanks, aircraft, and explosives. While we waited in the aircraft, the battlefield forces were already spawning inside headquarters positioned across the map. They did not have to search for weapons. They entered the battle with their customized rifles, machine guns, sniper rifles, explosives, class equipment, and military vehicles already available. Tanks were rolling out of their bases before we had even jumped. Helicopters were preparing to take flight. Jets were moving toward their runways. Armored transports were being loaded with infantry. We had none of that. Every Warzone operator entered the battle with a pistol. The objective was complete map domination. We had to capture strategic positions, eliminate enemy troops, and control more of the battlefield by the end of the 2-hour match. The deployment light turned green, the rear ramp opened, then we jumped. The sky filled with parachutes, hundreds of Warzone operators separated in every direction. Each squad attempting to choose the best possible landing location. We had to make that decision carefully. Landing too far away from the action could give us time to loot, but it could also allow battlefield troops to capture more objectives. Landing too close to their headquarters could put us into combat before we had acquired proper weapons. Our first priorities were weapons, armor plates, gadgets, ammunition, contracts, and cash. We needed loadouts. We needed kill streaks. Most importantly, we needed time. Some operators did not care about any of that. The kill-hungry players aimed directly for the enemy headquarters. They wanted immediate action. They dropped behind battlefield lines, pulled out their pistols, and attacked soldiers who were already carrying assault rifles, light machine guns, sniper rifles, launchers, and explosives. A few of those operators caught the enemy by surprise. They eliminated soldiers, attacked vehicle crews, and temporarily disrupted the deployment of several battlefield squads. Where enough Warzone operators landed near an enemy headquarters, they slowed the opening battlefield advance. But most of them did not survive. A pistol was not enough against an organized military force. The early attack caused confusion, but it did not stop the enemy. During the first 5 minutes, Battlefield held the advantage. Their infantry immediately moved toward the objectives closest to their headquarters. Armored vehicles transported entire squads across the map, while tanks took positions along major roads. We were still opening supply boxes. My squad entered a partially abandoned building near one of the outer objectives. We searched every room we could find. One operator found a submachine gun. Another found armor plates and ammunition. I found an assault rifle with only a few magazines. It was not our preferred equipment, but it was better than the pistol I had carried out of the aircraft. Across the map, other Warzone squads completed contracts and collected cash. Some moved toward buy stations. Others searched for enough equipment to attack isolated objectives. The battlefield troops did not give us time to prepare. They began a full-scale assault almost immediately. Their soldiers pushed outward from their headquarters in organized formations. Infantry squads moved behind armored vehicles while helicopters flew overhead. Every minute we spent looting allowed them to capture more territory. We knew the map. They had the firepower. By the 10th minute, Battlefield had captured most of the objectives closest to its headquarters. Their early control zones had become staging areas for the next phase of the assault. Our squads had managed to capture several objectives farther away from the battlefield spawn points. Because we had entered from the sky, we had been able to land behind the areas their ground forces had not yet reached. For a brief period, the map had been divided. Battlefield controlled the areas surrounding its headquarters. We controlled several distant and isolated positions. Then the factions made full contact. The fighting escalated almost immediately. Our operators were faster during infantry engagements. We moved through windows, slid through doorways, climbed rooftops, and changed positions before the battlefield soldiers could surround us. But their ground vehicles repeatedly overran us. An infantry squad could win a gunfight and still be destroyed seconds later by a tank. We ambushed groups of soldiers, only for armored transports to arrive with reinforcements. Battlefield troops took a slight lead in both objectives and kills. We continued looting, completing contracts, purchasing equipment, and calling in loadout drops. We were slowly becoming more dangerous, but the enemy had already gained momentum. At the 20-minute mark, the airspace became crowded. Battlefield helicopters flew over the cities while fighter jets crossed above them at high speed. Our UAVs began appearing throughout the map, revealing enemy movement and helping our squads identify approaching vehicles. Counter-EAVs disrupted communications and interfered with radar. We called in our first major airstrikes against enemy positions. For a moment, it appeared that we could contest the airspace without fielding our own permanent air force. Then the battlefield jets began hunting our UAVs. One by one, our reconnaissance systems disappeared from the sky. The jets also targeted infantry moving between objectives. Operators were struck while crossing roads, climbing rooftops, and gathering nearby stations. On the ground, however, the battle was beginning to change. More of us had acquired our loadouts. The random weapons we had found during the opening minutes were being replaced by the rifles, optics, attachments, perks, and equipment we understood best. We were no longer fighting with pistols. The battlefield infantry noticed the difference immediately. Our operators began winning more one-on-one engagements. We moved faster, reacted more aggressively, and survived more damage because of our armor plates. The enemy's early kill advantage began shrinking. Our knowledge of the map continued helping us. We knew which buildings connected to nearby rooftops. We understood where to find underground routes, stairwells, ladders, and hidden entrances. But Battlefield's destruction system changed everything. A building we had defended for several minutes suddenly lost an entire wall when a tank fired into it. A rooftop position collapsed under explosives. A hallway we believed was protected became exposed when a helicopter destroyed the side of the structure. We had memorized the map as it had once existed. The battlefield forces were changing it around us. Every explosion created a new line of sight. Every collapsed wall produced another entry point. We were forced to adapt while fighting. Even with that disruption, our infantry kills increased. By the end of the first 30 minutes, our kill total had nearly reached battlefields. Battlefield controlled the sky and the heavy vehicles. We controlled many of the infantry engagements. Their jets and helicopters dominated the airspace. Their tanks, mines, armored transports, launchers, and heavy weapons overwhelmed 30 minutes into the battle. Control had divided into two distinct categories. Most of the vehicles available to us, whenever we attempted to use lighter vehicles, battlefield tanks destroyed them. Whenever we crossed open roads, helicopters attacked us. Whenever several squads gathered in one location, enemy explosives forced us apart. We had to change our strategy. Separate Warzone squads began communicating through proximity chat. Operators who normally would have competed for kills began sharing information. Tank approaching from the east, helicopter above the objective, engineers moving through the destroyed building, sniper on the tower. Our loadouts changed as well. Players replaced secondary weapons with rocket launchers. C4 charges were planted along vehicle routes. Mines were hidden near objectives. Grenades were thrown beneath armored vehicles. Cluster strikes and bunker busters were called against tanks and infantry formations. Instead of challenging battlefield armor directly, we began surrounding it. One squad distracted the vehicle. Another attacked from a rooftop. A third approached from behind with explosives. It was messy, but it worked. The battlefield soldiers recognized that they were losing more direct infantry fights. They adapted quickly. More Recon players entered the battle with sniper rifles. Instead of challenging us inside buildings, they attacked from hills, rooftops, towers, and distant structures. Engineers focused on our armor plates, killstreaks, vehicles, and equipment. Their explosives were especially effective at breaking our armor before infantry squads pushed forward. Support players became the foundation of their advance. They distributed ammunition, restored health, and revived fallen soldiers almost instantly. That became one of our greatest problems. We could win an engagement down several battlefield soldiers and still fail to remove them from the fight. If we could not reach them quickly enough, a support player revived the entire group. Battlefield troops returned to combat faster than we could eliminate them. The enemy also began using more explosives against us. Grenades, rockets, mines, tank shells, and demolition charges damaged our armor before the infantry firefight had even started. They were learning how to fight us. By the 40th minute, both factions understood the strengths of the other. The map had become uneven. Some areas were almost silent. Others were filled with constant gunfire, collapsing structures, airstrikes, vehicle explosions, and screaming soldiers. Many buildings had suffered moderate damage. Walls were missing, windows had been destroyed, and abandoned vehicles blocked the streets. We had taken the lead in kills. Our speed, movement, gun skill, and armor plates continued giving us the advantage in direct infantry combat. Several Warzone squads combined their strength around important objectives. We used MAPs as mobile cover and positioned them near entrances and roadways. Separate squads defended different levels of the same buildings. When tanks approached, we called in airstrikes and bunker busters. When battlefield infantry advanced without vehicle support, we destroyed them. Their soldiers discovered that infantry alone could not capture our strongest positions. Some battlefield squads stopped attacking those locations. They retreated to easier objectives closer to their existing territory. Instead of sacrificing more soldiers, they focused on building stronger map control. That decision kept them behind in kills, but it placed them ahead in territory. At approximately 50 minutes, our respawn system began working against us. Every time one of our operators was eliminated, the time required to return became longer. Battlefield. As respawn times remained mostly consistent. Their soldiers could die, return to headquarters, enter a vehicle, and rejoin the battle at a predictable rate. Our missing operators stayed gone for longer periods. That gave the battlefield forces opportunities to push forward before our squads had returned to full strength. We began relying on additional points and flare gun redeployments to bring teammates back more quickly. But every redeployment cost resources, cash that could have been spent on killstreaks, armor, ammunition, or loadouts was instead used to restore our squads. Some teams refused to spend the money. They held their positions with fewer soldiers while waiting for their teammates to return naturally. Others completed more contracts, hoping to recover the money they had lost. The problem was that killing battlefield soldiers did not give us enough resources to maintain the war. A successful firefight did not replace our armor plates. It did not replace our ammunition. It did not restore our kill streaks. It did not bring our teammates back. We were winning the kill count, but the war was becoming increasingly expensive. Some operators began taking equipment from fallen teammates. Weapons, cash, ammunition, armor, and gadgets were collected from the bodies of our own soldiers to keep the surviving squad members operational. It was not betrayal, it was survival. At that point, the effect remained minimal. The map still contained contracts, supply boxes, care packages, buy stations, and ammunition reserves. But the resources were no longer infinite. Every airstrike we used was one fewer airstrike available later. Every armor plate destroyed by an engineer had to be replaced. Every loadout camper forced us to spend more time and lives recovering equipment. The first hour had not ended, and we were already being forced to think about what we could afford to lose. After 1 hour, battlefields still ruled most of the airspace. Their jets controlled the skies. Their helicopters supported infantry assaults. Their tanks roamed the streets and forced us to remain inside buildings, alleys, bunkers, and underground passages. Some of our squads responded with a dangerous strategy. They began attacking the battlefield headquarters. Operators used their map knowledge and movement to slip behind enemy lines. They positioned themselves near vehicle routes and spawn exits. When battlefield soldiers returned to the map, our hidden squads opened fire. The spawn attacks generated large numbers of kills. For several minutes, entire sections of the battlefield advance were delayed, but the enemy adjusted. They changed deployment routes, sent soldiers to clear their headquarters, and used vehicles to destroy the buildings where our operators had been hiding. The strategy bought us time. It did not stop their advance. Returning to the battlefield had become increasingly dangerous. Battlefield infantry began shooting our operators while they parachuted toward the ground. Machine gunners fired into the sky. Vehicle crews aimed mounted weapons upward. Helicopters intercepted us before we could reach our chosen landing zones. To survive, we had to cut our parachutes and descend more quickly. That destroyed the precision of our redeployments. Operators who intended to land on rooftops fell into exposed streets. Squads were separated across several buildings. Some soldiers landed directly beside battlefield vehicles. The enemy understood that we were most vulnerable before our feet touched the ground. They exploited it relentlessly. The waterways had mostly fallen under battlefield control. We were faster in the water, and we could fire our weapons while submerged. That allowed some of our operators to ambush soldiers near bridges, docks, and shoreline. But battlefield possessed more firepower. Their boats, aircraft, vehicles, and shoreline infantry prevented us from taking complete control. We contested the water. They occupied it. Other Warzone squads moved underground. They entered bunkers searching for specialized weapons, perks, equipment, and killstreaks. Transport aircraft crossed the battlefield and dropped Juggernaut packages into selected areas. When those packages landed, heavily armored Warzone operators emerged with enough firepower to temporarily halt entire infantry pushes. The Juggernauts became moving strongpoints, but even they could not withstand concentrated tank shells, rockets, aircraft, and explosives forever. Battlefield troops began camping our loadout drops. They knew we depended on those crates to reach full combat effectiveness. Snipers watched them from distant rooftops. Engineers placed explosives nearby. Machine gunners waited inside surrounding buildings. Some operators reached their loadouts and were killed before they could move. Others never reached the crates at all. At the same time, battlefield aircraft began directly supporting the ground assault. Jets and helicopters attacked our semi-fortified objectives. They destroyed rooftops, exposed interior rooms, and eliminated defensive positions before battlefield infantry arrived. We used rocket launchers and sniper rifles to fight back. Some of our marksmen shot pilots through helicopter and jet cockpits. Other squads launched coordinated rockets into approaching aircraft. We destroyed several of them, but the sky remained under battlefield control. At approximately 70 to 80 minutes into the battle, our semi-fortified objectives began falling. Battlefield vehicles attacked first. Tanks destroyed defensive walls. Helicopters fired into upper floors. Jets struck exposed positions. Then the infantry moved in. We fought from staircases, rooftops, windows, alleys, and collapsed rooms. We continued winning many individual gunfights, but we could not stop the combined assault. One by one, the weaker objectives were overrun. Our surviving operators fell back toward the strongest warzone, controlled zones. Battlefield now controlled more of the map. We still led in kills, but the territory was disappearing. Most of our remaining troops gathered around heavily defended capture zones. We turned buildings into fortresses. Mines were placed near entrances. C4 charges were hidden along roads. Snipers watched the surrounding rooftops. Maps blocked narrow approaches. Squads divided their responsibilities and communicated through proximity chat. When battlefield infantry attempted to enter those zones, we destroyed them. The closer they moved, the more dangerous the attack became. Entire battlefield assault groups were wiped out before reaching the objectives. Their surviving soldiers retreated. Some regrouped. Others searched for flanking routes. For a brief moment, our defensive lines held, but Battlefield stopped attacking us directly. Instead, they surrounded us. Heavy land vehicles and aircraft remained outside our defenses and attacked from a distance. Tanks shelled the buildings. Helicopters targeted rooftops and windows. Jets struck equipment positions. The enemy was no longer attempting to capture our zones immediately. They intended to wear us down. The method worked. Every explosion destroyed another section of cover. Every tank shell forced us to use more armor. Every aircraft attack consumed ammunition and rockets. Our resources were disappearing faster than we could replace them. We answered with everything we had. UAVs filled the sky. Counter UAVs blinded the enemy. Precision airstrikes hit armored formations. Cluster strikes covered major roads. Bunker busters destroyed tanks and groups of infantry. Our snipers continued targeting pilots. Our rocket teams fired from damaged buildings and underground entrances. For several minutes, the airspace became the most violent part of the battle. Aircraft fell from the sky. Tanks burned in the streets. Entire infantry formations disappeared beneath explosions. Battlefield responded by deploying mobile anti-air vehicles, missile interceptors, engineers, and more launchers. Once again, they adapted. By the 80th minute, we controlled only a few objectives. Battlefield held most of the map. Our remaining control zones were powerful, but isolated. Our resources had become scarce. Ammunition was rationed. Armor plates were saved for incoming assaults. Explosives were used only against vehicles. Killstreaks were reserved for emergencies. Buy stations offered fewer useful resources, and several had become too dangerous to reach. Our respawn times continued increasing. Every dead operator left another gap in the defensive line. Small battles still occurred throughout the map, but many ended quickly. Isolated Warzone operators often lacked the equipment needed to survive a prolonged fight. Yet we continued recording kills. Even while surrounded, we remained dangerous. Battlefield soldiers who entered buildings alone rarely survived. Vehicle crews who moved too close were attacked with explosives. Pilots who flew too low risked being shot from their cockpits. We still led the kill count, but kills could not rebuild our defenses. As the battle approached its final 30 minutes, most of us understood what was happening. We had killed more enemy soldiers. We had won countless infantry engagements. We had destroyed tanks, helicopters, jets, and armored transports. But Battlefield had captured the roads, waterways, headquarters sectors, and most of the objectives. Their military system had outlasted our economy. Their support players returned downed soldiers to combat. Their consistent respawns maintained pressure. Their vehicles protected infantry advances. Their destruction changed the map faster than we could defend it. Our surviving zones had become islands surrounded by battlefield territory. There was no longer a realistic path to total map control. Some operators continued defending the remaining objectives. Others stopped fighting for territory. They hunted kills. During the final minutes, several Warzone squads abandoned their fortified zones and moved into enemy territory. They knew the battle was almost over. They used their remaining armor, ammunition, and killstreaks in one final attack. Some ambushed battlefield squads moving between objectives. Others attacked vehicles with C4 and launchers. Snipers targeted pilots and distant infantry. Operators parachuted into dangerous locations without expecting to return. The goal had changed. They were no longer trying to win the map. They were trying to take as many battlefield soldiers with them as possible. Those of us who remained behind defended the final capture zones. We watched tanks approach through smoke. Filled streets, we heard jets pass overhead. We felt the buildings shake as shells struck the exterior. The battlefield forces attacked again, and we fought until the final second. At exactly 2 hours, the battle ended. Battlefield controlled most of the map. They held the majority of the objectives, roadways, waterways, and strategic positions. We still held the higher kill count. Our operators had proven faster and more effective in direct infantry engagements. We had adapted to their vehicles, countered their aircraft, survived the destruction of the environment, and defended our strongest positions against overwhelming attacks. But the battle had never been decided by kills alone. It had been decided by territory. Battlefield had entered the fight fully equipped. They had maintained consistent respawn. They had used tanks, aircraft, engineers, recon troops, and support soldiers as one combined military force. We had entered with pistols and built our strength from whatever we could find. For 2 hours we had fought, looted, adapted, purchased, redeployed, and survived. But eventually, our resources had run out. We had won more gunfights. Battlefield had won the war. As the final announcement echoed across the map, the remaining gunfire faded. The objectives were locked. The surviving soldiers stopped moving, and the result appeared before us. Battlefield victory. Map secured.
After an intense 2-hour war with 500 combatants on each side, the Battlefield side is poised to emerge victorious. The decision comes from the superior sustainability and combined arms power. Sustainability. Battlefield troops simply don't stay dead. Their near instant respawns and army of medics mean they can keep coming relentlessly, whereas the Warzone operators, for all their individual skill and self-revives, eventually get worn down by shorter numbers on the field at any given time. As one analysis put it, Battlefield's revive mechanic lets them overcome any engagement through sheer grind, overwhelming the enemy by reviving faster than they can be eliminated. Warzone squads would score plenty of downs, but many of those would be nullified by a defibrillator shock, bringing the soldier right back into the fight. Combined arm dominance. The Battlefield team's use of tanks, attack helos, and jets proved decisive in the long run. Those assets provide heavy fire support and mobility Warzone can't fully match. Warzone's airstrike and launchers would take a toll, but vehicles can be repaired and remanned. whereas killstreaks are one and done. The constant presence of armor and aircraft tilts map control to battlefield. They can force Warzone players out of cover with destruction and pin them with suppressive fire. Warzone's most powerful tool against this, the precision airstrike. This is great for a surprise strike, but not enough to stem the tide continuously. Team coordination and objective play. Battlefield players function cohesively, focusing on strategic objectives and supporting each other's roles. Warzone players, while extraordinarily deadly in small unit skirmishes, aren't as practiced in large-scale coordination beyond their squads. The Warzone side, lacking a unifying command structure beyond ad hoc leadership, might find themselves reacting rather than orchestrating. Warzone's brilliance in short bursts. Make no mistake, the Warzone team would have standout moments. Their ability to rapidly kill targets and pull off clutch plays is high. We'd likely see more Battlefield squads completely wiped out in seconds by a savvy Warzone flanker or an expertly called cluster strike. However, these wins tend to be isolated in short term. Warzone's strength is a fast-paced blitz, and they would indeed create chaos, especially early on and during coordinated killstreak pushes. But when the dust settles, the Battlefield forces have the mechanism to literally revive and reorganize, nullifying those brilliant offenses. Warzone's side doesn't have any equivalent way to bounce back except waiting on respawns. By the end, the Battlefield team would have more ground and have inflicted more lasting casualties. The Warzone side running low on resources, plates, ammo, etc., and facing an enemy that seems to have infinite lives would be hard-pressed to keep up the fight. In kill count victory condition, Warzone likely leads due to being more skilled on the field. If it were about holding objectives, Battlefield would lead, as Warzone would be either scattered by vehicles or too busy surviving bombardments to capture and hold territory. The final verdict: Battlefield side wins the 2-hour 500 versus 500 war. Their quick reinforcements, teamwork, and heavy firepower outlast and overcome Warzone's initial onslaught and individual heroics. Warzone operators certainly make the Battlefield team bleed for it, with higher per soldier kill ratios, but the battle ultimately goes to the side built for large-scale warfare. In a drawn-out conflict of this magnitude, the disciplined combined arms strategy of Battlefield triumphs over the run-and-gun tactics of Warzone.